Um, Hello. Uh, I wanted to make a video about Sid Barrett because why not? All of my Sid videos seem to do well on this channel, and I do love him so much. So, I'm going to read this Wikipedia article about Sid because he's my friend. We be speaking telepathically to one another. That's a joke. I'm not actually. I don't actually think I can do that. I'm not. I'm okay, guys. Like, I know that because I'm insane, you guys might think that I might. You guys might think that I might genuinely believe I can speak to Sid telepathically because I am psychotic and stuff. But not currently. I'm not currently psychotic, so it's okay. All right. So let's just read a little bit about the little Siddo. Roger Keith Sid Barrett was an English singer, guitarist, and songwriter who co-founded the rock band Pink Floyd in 1965. Barrett was the band's frontman and primary songwriter, known for his whimsical style of psychedelia, English-accented singing, and stream-of-consciousness writing style. As a guitarist, he was influential for his free-form playing and for employing effects such as dissonance, distortion, echo, and feedback. Originally trained as a painter, Barrett was musically active for less than 10 years. With Pink Floyd, he recorded 4 singles: their debut album Piper at the Gates of Dawn, portions of their second album A Saucer Full of Secrets, and several that were not released until years later. In April 1968, Barrett was ousted from the band amid speculation of mental illness and his excessive use of psychedelic drugs. He began a brief solo career in 1969 with the single Octopus, followed by albums The Madcap Laughs and Barrett, recorded with the aid of 3 other members of Pink Floyd. In 1972, Barrett left the music industry, retired from public life, and strictly guarded his privacy until his death. He continued painting and dedicated himself to gardening. Pink Floyd recorded several tributes and homages to him, including the 1975 suite Shine On You Crazy Diamond and parts of the 1975 rock opera The Wall. In 1988, EMI released an album of unreleased tracks and outtakes, Opal, with Barrett's approval. In 1996, Barrett was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a member of Pink Floyd. He died of pancreatic cancer in 2006. Life and career, early years. Roger Keith Barrett was born on the 6th of January 1946 in Cambridge to a middle-class family living at 60 Glizzen Road. He was the fourth of 5 children. His father, Arthur Max Barrett, was a prominent pathologist and was said to be related to Elizabeth Garrett Anderson through Max's maternal grandmother, Ellen Garrett. In 1951, his family moved to 183 Hills Road. Barrett played piano occasionally, but usually preferred writing and drawing. He bought a ukulele at age 10, a, a banjo at 11, and a Hofner acoustic guitar at 14. After a year, he purchased his first acoustic guitar. He bought his first electric A year after he purchased his first acoustic guitar, he bought his first electric guitar and built his own amplifier. He was a scout with the 7th Cambridge Troop and went on to be a patrol leader. According to one story, at the age of 14, Barrett acquired the nickname Sid after an old Cambridge jazz bassist, Sid the Beat Barrett. Barrett changed the spelling to differentiate himself. By another account, when Barrett was 13, his schoolmates nicknamed him Sid after he came to a field day at Abington Scout site wearing a flat cap instead of a scout beret, because Sid was a working class name. See, they're classist. They be making little jokes. Guys, it's terrible. They be making little classist jokes. As a communist, as an anarcho-communist, I cannot stand for this. Bad children. He used both names interchangeably for several years. His sister Rosemary said, "He was never sit at home. He would never have allowed it." At one point at Morley Memorial Junior School, Barrett was taught by the mother of future Pink Floyd bassist Roger Waters. Later, in 1957, he attended Cambridgeshire High School for Boys with Waters. His father died of cancer on the 11th of December 1961, less than a month before Barrett's 16th birthday. On this date, Barrett left the entry in his diary blank. By this time, his siblings had left home and his mother rented out rooms to lodgers. Eager to help her son recover from his grief, Barrett's mother encouraged the band in which he played, I'm going to assume that's pronounced Jeff Mott and the Mottos, a band which Barrett formed, to perform in their front room. Waters and Barrett were childhood friends, and Waters often visited such gigs. At one point, Waters organized a gig, C&D benefit at a C&D benefit at Friends Meeting House on the 11th of March 1962, but shortly afterwards Jeff Mott joined the Boston Crabs and the Mottos broke up. In September 1962, Barrett had taken a place at the art department of the Cambridgeshire College of Arts and Technology, where he met David Gilmour. Cambridgeshire College of Arts and Technology, where he met David Gilmour. Yeah, I'm just not sure if I read that correctly. Sorry, guys. In late 1962 and early 1963, the Beatles made an impact on Barrett, and he began to play Beatles songs at parties and at picnics. In 1963, Barrett became a Rolling Stones fan, and with then-girlfriend Libby Gosden, saw them perform at a village hall in Cambridgeshire. He would cite Jimmy Reed as an influence, however he remarked that Bo Diddley was his greatest influence. At this point, Barrett started writing songs. One friend recalls hearing Effervescing Elephant, later to be recorded on his solo album Barrett. Around this time, Barrett and Gilmour occasionally played acoustic gigs together. Barrett had played bass guitar with Those Without in mid-1963, and bass and guitar with Hollerin' Blues the next summer. In 1964, Barrett and Gosden saw Bob Dylan perform. After this performance, Barrett was inspired to write Bob Dylan blues. Barrett, now thinking about his future, decided to apply for Camberwell College of Arts in London. He enrolled in the college in the summer of 1964 to study painting. Pink Floyd years, 1965 to 68. 1965 to 1968. Okay, yeah. Starting in 1964, the band that would become Pink Floyd evolved through various lineup and name changes, including the Abdabs, the Screaming Abdabs, Sigma 6, and the Megadeths. In 1965, Barrett joined them as the T-Set, sometimes spelled T-Set, like the letter T, instead of like the word T. When they found themselves playing a concert with another band of the same name, Barrett came up with the Pink Floyd sound, also known as the Pink Floyd Blues Band, later Pink Floyd. During 1965, they went into a studio for the first time when a friend of Richard Wright's gave the band free time to record. During this summer, Barrett had his first LSD trip in the garden of friend Dave Gale with Ian Moore and Storm Thorgerson. During one trip, Barrett and another friend, Paul Cherrier, ended up naked in the bath, reciting "No rules, no rules." Yeah, that was one. That was one thing that has made some people speculate that Syd Barrett might be like gay or bisexual because he was naked in a bath with another man, singing "No rules, no rules" and all that, feeling the freedom of being naked with another man and everything. I don't know. It's just something that some people speculate about. I think I could definitely see Syd Barrett as being bisexual. He's just got the traits, He seems bisexual to me, but That might just be me projecting, you know what I mean? We all want Sid to be a little queerdo, a little queer weirdo, but alas, we'll never know. Anyway, that summer, as a result of the continued drug use, the band became absorbed in Saint Matt. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. I'm gonna say Saint Matt because that's I don't know how to say it. I'm very sorry. Uh, a Sikh sect? I'm gonna assume. I think that's pronounced Sikh. Is it Sikh? I'm very sorry. I don't know. Storm Thorgerson, then living on Earlham Street, and Barrett. Wait, I don't need to read the things that are in the parentheses. I don't need to do that. And Barrett went to a London hotel to meet the sect's guru. Thorgerson managed to join the sect. Barrett, however, was deemed too young to join. Thorgerson saw this as a deeply important event in Barrett's life, as he was extremely upset by the rejection. While living near his friends, Barrett decided to write more songs. Neato. It says in parentheses that Bike was written around this time. That's exciting. That's really cool. London Underground, Black Hill Enterprises, and gigs. While Pink Floyd began playing cover versions of American R&B songs, by 1966 they had carved out their own style of improvised rock and roll, which drew as much from improvised jazz. After Bob Close departed from the band's direction changed. However, the change was not instantaneous, with more improvising on the guitars and keyboards. Drummer Nick Mason reflected, "It always felt to me that most of the ideas were emanating from Sid at the time." At this time, Barrett's reading reputedly included Grimm's fairy tales, Tolkien's The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, and the I Ching. During this period, Barrett wrote most of the songs for Pink Floyd's first album, and also songs that would later appear on his solo albums. In 1966, a new rock concert venue, the UFO, and it's spelled like UFO, but if you're in the know, if you're a knower, if you're a knowing one, then you'll know that it's pronounced UFO. Everybody says UFO. You gotta say UFO. You hear me? If you're if you're uh, if you're one of the ones who knows, then you knows that it's pronounced UFO. Okie dokie. All right. Opened in London and quickly became a haven for British psychedelic music. Pink Floyd, the house band, was its most popular attraction, and after making appearances at the rival Roundhouse, became the most popular musical group of the London underground psychedelic music scene. By the end of 1966, Pink Floyd had gained a reliable management team in Andrew King and Peter Jenner. Towards the end of October 1966, Pink Floyd, with King and Jenner, set up Black Hill Enterprises to manage the group's finances. Black Hill was staffed by lodgers Jenner found in his Ed Brook Roadhouse, among others, Barrett's flatmate, Peter Wynne Wilson, who became. Oh, wait, I don't need to read the stuff in the parentheses. Yeah, okay. King and Jenner wanted to prepare some demo recordings for a possible record deal, so at the end of October, they booked a session at Thompson Private Recording Studio in Hemel Hempstead. Oh, these British words, these British names. British names for things, it's always so funny. King said of the demos, "That was the first time I realized they were going to write all their own materials. Sid just turned into a songwriter. It seemed like overnight." King and Jenner befriended American expatriate Joe Boyd, the promoter of the UFO Club, who was making a name for himself as one of the more important entrepreneurs on the British music scene. The newly hired booking agent Brian Morrison and Boyd had proposed sending in better quality recordings. For Morrison's agency, the band played a gig outside London for the first time. In November, the band performed the first of many strangely named concerts. Philadelic Music for Simian Hominids, a multimedia event arranged by the group's former landlord, Mike Leonard, at Hornsey College of Art. They performed at the Free School for the following 2 weeks before performing at the Psychodelphia versus Ian Smith event at the Roundhouse in December, arranged by the Majority Rule for Rhodesia campaign and an Oxfam benefit at the Albert Hall. Okay, some of these things I just don't know what they are, but that's okay. Sometimes you just don't know. Tonight, let's all make love in London. At the beginning of 1967, Barrett was dating Jenny Spires. However, unknown to Barrett, Spires had an affair with Peter Whitehead. Spires convinced Whitehead, who thought the band sounded like Bad Schoenberg. Huh. Okay. Okay then. To use Pink Floyd in a film about the swinging London scene. I'm kind of inconsistent about whether or not I read the things that are in parentheses. Like, sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. I guess that's fine. You don't have to be consistent all the time. Anyway, at the cost of £80, I think that's a pound symbol, I'm pretty sure. I don't know. In January. What if it's not? What if I'm wrong? I don't think that's a euro symbol. I'm gonna assume it's a pound symbol. Okay. In January, Whitehead took the band into John Wood's Sound Techniques in Chelsea with the promoter Joe Boyd. They recorded a 16-minute version of Interstellar Overdrive and another composition, Nick's Boogie. Whitehead had filmed this recording, which was used in the film Tonight Let's All Make Love in London, and later on the video release of London 66 to 67. Whitehead later said that the band were just completely welded together, just like a jazz group. The Piper at the Gates of Dawn. Boyd attempted to sign the band with Polydor Records. However, Morrison convinced King and Jenner to try to start a bidding war between Polydor and EMI. In later January, Boyd produced a recording session for the group, with them returning to Sound Techniques in Chelsea again. After the bidding war idea was finished, Pink Floyd signed with EMI. Unusual for the time, the deal included recording an album, which meant the band had unlimited studio time at EMI Studios in return for a smaller royalty percentage. The band then attempted to re-record Arnold Lane, but the Boyd version from January was released instead. The band's first studio album, The Piper at the Gates of Dawn, was recorded intermittently between February and July 1967 in Studio 3 at Abbey Road Studios and produced by former Beatle engineer Norman Smith. By the time the album was released on the 4th of August, Arnold Lane, which was released months earlier on the 11th of March, had reached number 20 on the British singles charts despite being banned by Radio London, and the follow-up single, See Emily Play, had peaked at number 5. The album was successful in the UK, hitting number 6 on the British album charts. Their first 3 singles, including their third, Apples and Oranges, were written by Barrett, who was also the principal visionary/author of their critically acclaimed 1967 debut album. Of the 11 songs on Piper, Barrett wrote 8 and co-wrote another 2. Health problems. Through late 1967 and early 1968, Barrett became increasingly erratic, partly as a consequence of his heavy use of psychedelic drugs such as LSD. Once described as joyful, friendly, and extroverted, he became increasingly depressed and withdrawn, and experienced hallucinations, disorganized speech, memory lapses, intense mood swings, and periods of catatonia. Although the changes began gradually, he went missing for a long weekend and, according to several friends, including Wright, came back a completely different person. One of the striking features of his change was the development of a blank, dead-eyed stare. Barrett did not recognize friends and often did not know where he was. While Pink Floyd were recording See Emily Play at the Sound Technique studio, Gilmour stopped by on his return visit from Europe to say hello to Barrett. According to Gilmour, he just looked straight through me, barely acknowledged me that I was there. Boyd encountered Barrett and the rest of the Pink Floyd at the UFO Club in mid-1967, which he described in his memoir. I had exchanged pleasantries with the first three when Sid emerged from the crush. His sparkling eyes had always been his most attractive feature, but that night they were vacant, as if someone had reached inside his head and turned off a switch. During their set, he hardly sang, standing motionless for long passages, arms by his sides, staring into space. On a tour of Los Angeles, Barrett is said to have exclaimed, "Gee, it sure is nice to be in Las Vegas." Aw. I would do the same thing. I could see myself doing that same thing because, like, they both start with loss, even though it's spelt differently. I just get confused sometimes. You know? Don't we all get a bit confused sometimes? I could see myself making that mistake. Many reports described him on stage strumming one chord through the entire concert or not playing at all. At a show in Santa Monica, Barrett slowly detuned his guitar. Interviewed on the Pat Boone in Hollywood television program during the tour, Barrett replied with a blank and totally mute stare, according to Mason. Sid wasn't into moving his lips that day. Barrett exhibited similar behavior during the band's first appearance on Dick Clark's television show American Bandstand. Surviving footage of this appearance shows Barrett miming his parts competently. However, during a group interview afterwards, Barrett gave terse answers. During their appearance on the Perry Como show, Rick Wright had to mime all the vocals on Matilda Mother because of Barrett's condition. During this time, Barrett would often forget to bring his guitar to sessions, damage equipment, and was occasionally unable to hold his plectrum. What's a plectrum? What's that? I don't know what that is. Before a performance in late 1967, Barrett reportedly crushed Mandrax tranquilizer tablets into um, a tube of Brill cream. Brill cream, I suppose that's how it's pronounced, into his hair, which melted down his face under the heat of the stage lighting, making him look like a guttered candle. Mason disputed the Mandrax portion of this story, saying that Sid would never waste good Mandy's. I know that Mandrax contains a bit of DPH, so I don't know how good it really is. That's just my opinion. Like I've always thought about like what's Mandrax like? What does it feel like? But I know that it contains DPH, which is a bad drug. Diphenhydramine, that's a bad drug. So I don't know if it's really. I don't know if Mandrax would be a very good thing. But then again, just a little bit of DPH doesn't hurt anybody. Like, it can be a good potentiator for certain drugs. So, it can kind of like increase the effects of other better drugs. But on its own, it's a really shit drug. But anyway, departure from Pink Floyd. During Pink Floyd's UK tour with Jimi Hendrix in November of 1967, guitarist David O'List from The Nice substituted for Barrett on several occasions when he was unable to perform or failed to appear. Around Christmas, Pink Floyd asked Gilmour to join as a second guitarist to cover for Barrett. For a handful of shows, Gilmour played and sang while Barrett wandered around on stage, occasionally joining the performance. The other band members grew tired of Barrett's antics, and on the 26th of January 1968, when Waters was driving on the way to a show in Southampton University, they elected not to pick Barrett up. Sorry, I'm looking at the time. One person in the car said, "Shall we pick Sid up?" and another said, "Let's not bother." As Barrett had written the bulk of the band's material, the plan was to retain him as a non-touring member, as the Beach Boys had done with Brian Wilson, but this proved impractical. According to Waters, Barrett came to what was to be their last practice session with a new song he had dubbed "Have You Got It Yet?" The song seemed simple when he first presented it, but it soon became impossibly difficult to learn. The band eventually realized that Barrett was changing the arrangement as they played, and that Barrett was playing a joke on them. According to David Gilmour, it was really just a 12 bar, but the responses were always in the wrong places, according to Sid. Some parts of his brain were perfectly intact, his sense of humor being one of them. Waters called it a real act of mad genius. One of the songs Barrett wrote for Pink Floyd after The Piper at the Gates of Dawn, only Jug Band Blues was included on their album A Saucer Full of Secrets. Apples and Oranges became an unsuccessful single, and Scream Thy Last Scream and Vegetable Man remained unreleased until 2016 in the early years 1967 to 1972 box set, as they were deemed too dark and unsettling. Barrett played guitar on the Saucer Full of Secrets tracks Remember a Day and Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun. Feeling guilty, the members of Pink Floyd did not tell Barrett that he was no longer in the band. According to Wright, who lived with Barrett at the time, he told Barrett he was going to buy cigarettes when he was when leaving to play a show. He would return hours later to find Barrett in the same position, sometimes with a cigarette burned completely down between his fingers. The incident was later referenced in the film Pink Floyd: The Wall. Emerging from catatonia and unaware that a long period had elapsed, Barrett would ask, "Have you got the cigarettes?" Barrett spent time outside the recording studio in the reception area waiting to be invited in. He also came to a few performances and glared at Gilmour. On the 6th of April 1968, Pink Floyd officially announced that Barrett was no longer a member, the same day their contract with Black Hill Enterprises was terminated. Considering him the band's musical leader, Black Hill Enterprises retained Barrett. Okay, I'm gonna end the recording here, and I will make a part 2.